Okay, we're doing something a little bit different this fall on the Gravity Podcast. We're launching a series featuring interviews with the experts from our Grow Transformational Wellness Program, exclusively for residents of our greenhouse community. The year-long program is made up of monthly learnings designed to help residents build habits for a better life. Each month, a new wellness topic is introduced by an expert in that area. I'm excited for you to hear from each guest on their journey to becoming an expert and finding their passion for helping others through wellness practice. Tune in this fall to hear their inspiring stories. For more information on the Grow program, visit livinggreenhouse.com. As I said, this program is exclusively for our greenhouse residents today. So please, if you have somebody that's interested in looking for a community like Greenhouse, please check out the website and shoot us a note if this is something that you'd like to learn more about as a non-resident. We're also considering potentially over time expanding this program outside of the physical community and into our virtual community as well. So enjoy our guests, our experts, and check us out at livinggreenhouse.com. Okay, this week I am back with my friend Chet Scott, who joins me on the podcast once again. Those of you that listen to the podcast regularly know Chet has been a regular here and is a good friend and someone that I always love being in deep conversation with. Chet is the founder of Built to Lead, a leadership and team building philosophy and program aimed to help teams awaken, align, and transform. Chet has been a dear friend for many years and has joined us as the journaling expert for the Grow Transformational Wellness Program at our greenhouse community. Chet joins us again to talk about journaling, but it's always a great conversation, winds in a lot of different directions, a lot of learning, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It's always a pleasure to be with Chet. All right, we are back with Chet Scott, the Gravity Podcast. I don't know what number appearance this is, but you are by far and away the most frequent guest, which
I think it's 7 or 8.
Is it?
I think.
Good.
I should have looked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have looked.
Well, it's a good thing. Happy to have you back. It's
happy to be back.
Always a pleasure. So, so you're taking the reins today. It's what you told me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, sort of.
Okay.
I'm going to start us out.
Okay.
And then we'll just play like we always do.
Yeah.
But I have a good start for your listeners because it's appropriate to every human. So I'm gonna go over just a real basic leadership insight that's just gotten clear for me in the last few weeks, which always makes me smile when the old dog learns something. It feels like a new trick for stuff I've been studying for like almost 40 years now. You know, what makes individuals, teams, and leaders tick? I mean, what makes just so few of them great? And then what makes even fewer of them be able to sustain that greatness? I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm always feel like all I'm doing is going back over fundamentals with people because that's what we really need to do to sink it in. But every once in a while I get what in my mind feels like a new insight. And I had one just a few weeks ago with something fundamentally just real basic to leading yourself and others. So I wanted to just kind of share that with you and see how it hits you.
Okay.
So all humans talk to themselves. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And how many of them would you guess that experience is a positive?
Not many.
Not many. Why do you guess that is? In other words, like if we all are doing it, talking to ourselves, you'd think over the course of history we would learn how to make that a positive, something that gives us juice. But I still think from the beginning of time to today, most humans would say when they're honest about their self-talk, it's not uplifting. Why is that? What do you think?
I think it's pretty complicated. First of all, I think people are unconscious to the fact that they're even talking to themselves, and they see the voice in their head as themselves, and it's not.
Right.
And that's the first piece that people are totally unaware of. The second piece, why is it negative, is usually I think, some sort of, inner child wound, some kind of, experience that landed inside of them, that has them, talking in that way. And that probably stems back to fear, if I had to guess, for most people.
I don't think you're too far off. And I think the root of our fear wiring is evolutionary, which is it keeps us alive. And so the negative self-talk is another way of the organisms remaining alive by thinking about what could go wrong, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so what came to me in a flash, and I don't even remember what was the flash. It's always something like working with a client, something they said just like had that light bulb with me. It wasn't anything I came up with on my own, but it was like our interaction had me just going, shit, I think we're getting this all wrong. So I dissected self-talk, and I said, here's what I think we ought to do. We got to focus on the two aspects of talking. Talking, remember, is two-way. It is speaking and listening. So you and I, right now, we are having a talk. I'm speaking, you're listening. Then when you speak, I listen. It's you don't give a talk, you give a speech. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of mistake the two. So really, we need to dissect self-talk, I think, is a term we've coined, and I don't think it represents what's going down. And so here's what I told my client the other day when he was telling me about his worrisome negative self-talk in moments of truth for him. And I said to him, here's the gig. You got to stop listening to yourself and start speaking into yourself. And he looked at me like, damn. And I'm like, I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, that is kind of damn, isn't it? I said, so what are you listening to? And he just rattled off that little voice in his head that's really like a drunk. We can call it a traumatized child, whatever. It's like a freaking drunk in your head for most of us. And we listen to it like it's a wise sage.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that is not a wise sage you're listening to. Stop listening to yourself and start speaking into yourself. And for a Built to Lead client that understands what I'm saying, if a listener's Built to Lead client, it's like, this is why we do core work. So you really know your worldview, your identity, your principles, your passions, your purpose. You have a process. And then you remind yourself daily to speak that to yourself. And I just thought out to myself, I said to my client, and I'll say it to your listeners, I start off every day, and I hadn't even thought about it. I start off every morning before my feet touch the carpet, I speak to myself. It's almost like I'm priming myself not to listen to that little dirty voice in my head. Before I get out of my bed, I speak very specifically to myself. First of all, I just thank God that I woke up. I didn't used to be so grateful in the morning. I am now. My eyes pop open, and the first thing I do is, I am. Thank you, Lord, for giving me another day. And then I remind myself before my feet hit the carpet of my principles. Chet, today, bottle the way. You know the drill. Embrace the pain and suffering. You know life is hard. Embody truth and love. Okay, check, check, check. I speak that to myself to remind me that's who I am. And so whatever happens to me during the day, that cues up that little voice to say, no to this or no to that or cut a corner here, I can just flip to the speaking of who I really am, and then I can go act it out. And it's been such a game changer. And I've seen it with a few of these athletes I've worked with, same thing. Certain moments in a game, in when we make them right at the end of that, what were you thinking? It's like they were listening to this little voice, as opposed to speaking truth so that they can flip the switch to being who they are.
It's interesting because I'm thinking about the 7 good minute drill, and I actually was recording a podcast recently, and the guest, when we were done, said something about, you're such a good listener. Mm-hmm. And I shared with her 7 good minutes.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa, that's amazing, and then, went home and played with it.
Yeah.
And I've learned through Built to Lead how to listen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes better than others, just the
Always.
gig, right?
Yep. For all of us.
But, so I'm listening, and I think that's the beauty of listening, is because you can actually then really hear, right, what you need to hear. And what I'm hearing you talk about, which is what I have been studying a little bit lately, is I think, like psychologically, like technically, I think this is parts work. There's a technique, this internal family systems approach, right, where there are the parts. So that's why I went to inner child.
Yeah.
And it could be a child, it could be some other age part, right? You could have in the parts like mapping, you have these protectors, and you have the firefighters, and you have the child parts. You have these different parts. And usually those voices in your head, especially the negative ones, are some other part of you, right? That is a wounded child, or it's trying to protect you, or it's scared and it's fighting fires, right? And it has all of these different sounds and languages, and right, and again, most people are unconscious to it, so they don't even know, and they think it's who they are, right? But when you're talking about speaking to yourself, to me, that's the and the Built to Lead work, right, the core work,
that's
right, which for people who don't know, I go back and listen to one of the many episodes with Chet, right? But it's about figuring out, who you are and what you believe and why you're here, and really aligning your inside, your actions, your being with all of those things, so that you can live in the world, as who you've chosen to be, right? As who you actually are, right? That to me is, an adult part, right? And even like a little bit more, I would call that like your soul. Yeah. You're right. Because you do have a part in you that you do want to listen to. Yeah. Right. And so you're saying, you're speaking to yourself, but whether it's, somewhat semantics, I think it's about like listening to who you really are. Well, not all these other things, right?
Exactly. So it is semantics. So when I say stop listening to yourself, start speaking into yourself, I'm just saying it's one thing to write the core, it's another thing to live it. Yeah. One of the best ways to go from writing it, which is essential, to then living it, is reminding yourself by speaking it to yourself. Like, this is who I am. This is why I'm here. This is how I will walk today. And speak it right out of your core. So in other words, that's the proactive positive, that you just don't listen to. When you wake up in the morning, your survival wiring is just going to kick in. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Don't listen to that, because that's fear-based. And then speak to yourself, because we got to be reminded. And this is building on that insight. I said this to a client earlier this morning. And I said, the more you do the core work and you actually really believe it, and when you speak it to yourself, it changes that internal dialogue. You know what I mean? It calms you down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, guess what? Now you can really listen to others. Now you can really tune in because you don't have noise in your head. The only thing going on in your head is what's coming from your soul, who I am. And I'm at peace with it. And so now when I engage with you, I don't have to like have these little arguments in my own head. I can just give all of my psychic energy to listening to you. And it's a mind blower.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
You get that?
Yeah, I do. Well, let me ask you.
You freaking love this?
Yeah.
I freaking love this.
Yeah. It's good. It's really good. Let me ask you something I've been thinking about. When you're working now with a lot of teams, sports teams. You've always worked with team, right? Now you're spending more time working with athletic teams.
Yep.
And that's interesting to me too for a lot of reasons. But when you think about performance, whether it be on the field or, in the office or wherever, right? And we start thinking about like soul and love and peace, right? Do you find that those things are often in conflict? In other words, can you be a high performer and be peace and love? Can you be in your soul and still do the job at the highest level that's needed to win?
Great question. The world of sports, the easiest one to kind of dissect that one. You know what I mean? But you could dissect it in the world of business too. And I contend that you can be at the pinnacle of your profession running on fear. Pretty much the same way you can running on love. Those are your only two fuels, by the way. To get to your peak performance, you either run, human beings only run on two, okay? Fear or love. Those are your juices. And have there been great examples of highest performers running on fear? Heck yes. I mean, one would argue Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player of all time, he ran on fear his whole career. You know what I mean? There have been others that run on a form of fear that just looks like anger. Lance Armstrong, world number 1 in cycling. Whatever you want to believe about doping, which I still believe they all dope. But he ran on fear. Got to be number 1, 7 straight years. I go on and on. I think Tiger Woods ran on fear. So we know you can reach world number 1. You can have an edge running on fear. What about love? Well, I think you just go to who's number 1 right now in golf. Do you know?
Yeah, Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah. You think he runs on fear?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I get like it kind of doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
But I wonder. I don't know.
Well, we don't know about Tiger either. All we can go is what they've said in what they have recorded that we can look at, their words. And it wouldn't take a brain scientist to hear Tiger Woods and hear the fear that fueled him, the fire that was fear-based. Well, you look at Scotty Scheffler's, and it's completely the opposite.
Yeah, but here's where I would argue, like on Scheffler.
Yeah.
I think that if I were to guess, it does appear like he's having a lot more fun, that he loves the game, and that it's, there's a lot more love there.
Yeah.
Right? But we also know he's extremely competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so what's that about? Is that fear or love? The not wanting to lose. That isn't about the love of the game. That he does not want to get beaten, right? He's won everything, money, he's got a great wife, family, right? This guy still wants to win badly. Is that love? I don't know. That it doesn't look like love to me. That looks like, obsession or something else.
Mm. Oh, we could dissect that one forever. Obsession is often based in love, to use that word. A lot of people that are obsessed, when we go to the root of that, it's deep love.
Okay.
Yeah. I got his brain.
Well, no, because I don't know that I agree. Like, in large part, I would say like obsession is about more of a lack. Like internally, people are obsessed with something because they feel, out of control, or they feel, like they're not good enough. Right.
Well, I'm obsessed with making Built to Lead great. And it's because I love it. So I know from my own personal experience, like my obsession, which it is an obsession, with making Built to Lead great is not because I'm afraid of it not being great, or because I'm afraid of what other people think. Like, that does not fire me up at all. It's just the notion that I love this work. I love seeing the difference it makes. And I love learning new insights that I can use for myself, my family, my friends, my clients. And that obsession is fueled by my passion for it, which is love. And
okay.
So let me just finish the thought.
Yeah.
So I think either fuel works. We could argue it, but fear and love both do the job. The difference is fear takes a much greater toll, and it burns you out. So whenever I see a client that's burning out on something, I'm like, the obsession is fear-based. When it fires you up, it's love-based. When you can't wait to do it again, you're in love. All right? And love lasts a lifetime. Love gives you the juice. Fear lasts for a season, and it wears your ass out. So all you got to do to know what you're running on is just look at your juice. With love, the tank's full, and it feels like you're overflowing. With fear, it feels like you're running on empty. And like, I got to get something else to juice me, a drug, sex, a distraction, my phone, because I'm tired. And love does not tire you out. It puts air in your tires. And so I'm always telling all my clients, this is why we're aiming for you to be clear in your core, who you are, and then clear in your aim, your opus. And I want it to be a labor of love, not of fear. And when that's sincerely what it is, I can tell by the look on your face which it is. It's juice or it's not. Juice or drain. So I'm really big on, so this came about because I'm talking about self-talk. Stop listening to yourself, the negative self. Start speaking the true self into yourself, the core, which means you have to have been consciously doing core work, because you can't summon the words if you haven't wired them into you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then the more you do that, the more I can actually listen to you, because I'm out of the noise in my head. My mind's clear, and I can really tune into you, which is by far the greatest gift you can give to anybody in your world. Mm-hmm. Listen to them. But it takes you getting out of this to get into that. And so oftentimes that little voice tells us that we need to be something more or something less, the little voice in our head. And oftentimes I've found myself and my clients, especially coaches, telling their team they need to be something more or something less. And of late, I've been hearing a lot of coaches complaining to me that their team needs to be tougher. And this insight came with that as well. And I'm like, we got to stop telling your team to be tougher. That doesn't work. The more we tell them they need to be tougher, the less they believe they're tough. The reason we're saying it is because we know they're tough. And we just want them to be who they are. I know that's the motive of the coach. So we're going about it the wrong way. So we got to start reminding, as we're voicing into these teammates of ours, we got to start reminding them how, if we want them to be tougher than what we think they are, tell them how tough we think they are. and look them in the eye, because we really believe that, like, you are tougher than you're playing. Go be who you are. And as I've just done that with a few of mine that are going through a really hard time, and I've told them, like, you are tougher than this time you're in, and I really mean it, I can see them absorbing it, because sometimes their own self-talk can't get them out of that. And so as leaders, sometimes it's our job to speak truth into the team. And we got to use our words wisely, because if the truth is they need to be tougher, we got to figure out a way to say that in a way their brain will accept it, which is, you are tougher than you think. You are tougher than that. Go be who you really are. And we free them up with that kind of belief. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You grooving on this?
Yeah.
I can see the little gears churning in the little athlete's brain.
Well, I mean, I actually, in the athlete's brain,
Which is you.
I've seen Ty Tucker do this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced him do it.
Tell him who he is. Just
Ty Tucker's the Ohio State men's tennis coach, and when I'm over there and he's, coaching me, and telling me, that he knows I've got more,
right,
and he's right, and then you find it, it works.
It works,
right? Because it's true.
Because it's true.
Because it's true, and you need somebody to remind you of what you know to be true. And so when you get that, you can do more than you were doing before.
You can do more than you think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you've just you know it though. You just forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, this is why I want you to get up in the morning and remind yourself of who you are. So when Ty's not there, you can tell yourself. I want Ty to keep telling you, but I also want you to stop listening to yourself, doubting that little forehand volley at the net, and start prepping yourself like, I'm freaking great at the net.
It's usually the backhand.
Okay, the backhand. See, I knew it was something at the net. You know what I mean? I don't know much.
Backhand side in general.
Backhand side, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Was Agassi good on the backhand?
Agassi was good on both sides, but yeah, he had a good backhand. Yeah. 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 David is basically hates my backhand and has for a long time. And, he's not giving me good self-talk.
We're going to work on him.
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah.
So that's good. I like that little shot. I hope he listens to this. So the only thing I wanted to speak to you today was speak truth to yourself. Make that your habit. And in good times, it'll keep you from getting too high. In bad times, it'll keep you standing. And in the everyday, it'll give you peace. And that's a pretty good combo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. And others' words will build on that, the ones that you let in. But most of the others' words aren't, they're not really meant for, most of us don't have a huge bevy of people just trying to build us up with their words.
Right.
And we always should just study the impact social media is having on our young people to realize, you got to be careful who you listen to. Got to be careful who you let in, because we're all like fragile systems when it really gets down to it. And the old saying, you probably don't remember this, you're not old enough. When I was a kid, they'd say sticks and stones may break my bones.
They were still saying that when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. But words cannot hurt me. Mm-hmm. And man, have we realized that's just not true. I mean, today we have an anxious generation, and the anxiety is born and bred in the words they absorb in social media with people they don't even know. most often. But they're letting them in because they have not built a strong core. They have not controlled the way they listen to themselves. And so then when others come in, they're listening to them as if they're wise sages. And they're worse than the drunk in our own head. So if your listeners are listening, which we do know that they're partially listening, but I hope they hear, like, it matters a great deal the words you let in to your head, and it matters a great deal the words that are in your head, the ones you choose to listen to. And if you get that stuff right, and you build this core, you will become conscious of the words of a wise sage and the words of a stumbling drunk. And that will change the way you live your life. It will keep you on the even keel. It will give you poise in the storm. That's core work. But it's just a reminder to you, this is really for you. Your listeners are the side benefit, but I'm mostly speaking this to you as a friend, that you're stronger than you think. Your backhand's probably better than Baby Cass knows. And Ty's doing a good job of building you into the athlete that I've known you've been for a long time. You're an artist, an athlete, and an entrepreneur. And go be as good as you are in all of those. And just remember that. That's true. And every athlete, artist, and entrepreneur grows the most when they go through the most. And in the moment, we have a hard time being grateful. I know I did. I had a hard time being grateful when I didn't get the CEO job I thought I wanted. I had a hard time being grateful when both my brakes went out on Mount Sinise. I had a hard time being grateful when my heart was literally under attack, March 27th, 2021. And yet, as I look back on all those moments of truth, those moments and many others that I won't bother sharing, but those are what shaped me. Yeah? Those are what I'm thankful for now, because those have taught me so much.
I don't doubt that. I believe that to be true for myself and for everybody. If you allow that to be the case, it's not like an automatic, right? People can run into challenging life events and let it stop them from, doing what they are capable of or what they want to do.
They can defeat us and they can define us.
Yeah.
Often on our shoulders.
Yeah. But one thing that I am curious about, hearing your opinion, because I've started to form my own.
Yeah.
When, times of adversity hit.
Yeah.
And even if they quote, defeat you in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You lose a game, a match, something in business doesn't work out, whatever it is, right? It's not a debatable loss, right? Doesn't mean that you have to learn from that you want to get back in the game and win the next time.
Yeah.
Might teach you that maybe you don't want to play that game. And I think, that's okay.
That's great learning.
Yeah.
It's great learning.
Yeah, because I think oftentimes that gets, there's not room for that to be okay. It's like, get back out there and go win. Go prove, that you're not going to let it take you down.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's okay to just say, yeah, I don't want to play that game anymore. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's on each of us to be wise about that.
Well, this is kind of what I was asking you, though. The question about, can you be a high performer, right? Perform at the highest level and do it from love or peace. Maybe you argued love. Can you do it from peace?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Well, let me just unpack that a little bit with you, because I see very few examples of that. And mostly, what I think I've experienced for myself is that the way I looked at performance, high performance, success, winning, it oftentimes came at the expense of something else. And, I think for many years I thought that it was coming from a place of love, and maybe it was, at least in part. But I don't know that, like, for me now at this point in my life, that, success and like high performance look very different to me than they did, 5-10 years ago. Success to me looks nothing like what most people would call high performance. Success to me now looks like a lot more like peace and love, and something that isn't about what monetary gain or winning awards, accolades, doing things that you can point at and people say, wow, it's just, actually has nothing to do with that anymore. And when I was driven to do all of those things, and what it required to do those things, had to take me out of peace and, kind of soul level love. And so that's why I'm kind of left questioning, if it's even possible to do both. And maybe that's specifically like in the world of business.
Well,
but sorry, it's not actually just in the world of business, because you could argue in the world of politics, right? Maybe maybe in the world of sports.
I don't know about politics because I'm very unqualified to speak about that world. But in the world of business and the world of sport, I feel pretty comfortable saying you can have, I believe, peace and success are hand in hand. So I do believe the success won't last if there's not a peace about it. And so, which has nothing to do with awards or numbers in my mind, even in business. So like, I consider, again, Built to Lead to be a great success. And I'm at peace with the fact that we're a small giant and most of the world will never know that we existed. And yet in my mind, it's a wild success. This experiment that I started 22 years ago, that's now started off just with a dream for me to just build into a few. It's turned into now there's 12 of us doing this. That I didn't plan any of that. And we're doing it exactly the way I designed to do it, which was not to get me motivated to build something big. I've designed it so that I'm only inspired to do the work, and that's it, and do it with people that I care about. And I don't sit around on a day in, day out basis wishing Built to Lead were something else, or like feeling like the need to go out and prove it, or go get an award to put up in the office so that I can show it. I think it's been a wild success, and I'm really at peace that it's not ever going to be wildly popular. And that took me some time to get to that. I had to again, speak to myself as opposed to listening to whenever something would creep in where I'd want to be competitive in a negative way. I'd have to listen to that little voice and where it was coming from. This crazy ego, crazy warped sense of self, and just speak truth to me. And
yeah,
I'm still doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of how it can be done. And I was not chasing awards or some of the things that came with the success that we had either.
Yeah.
But to have the success, I feel like that we had, it did require getting out of peace. And I think that's true for most businesses and people that I know, including most coaches and athletes that I know.
Mm-hmm.
I think as you describe Built to Lead to be, I think, is intentionally designed to avoid a lot of that. As you scale and as you have more people involved,
yeah,
right? And if you have people that you employ, or contractors or investors, or a lot more of a complex business,
yes,
it creates a lot more room to come off of peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I suppose you could still, challenge yourself to be those things in every moment, regardless of the size and the scale and the complexity, coming back to just being who you are,
mm-hmm.
which, is something that I have worked quite a bit on, to be in standing in that, in the adversity.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have to constantly, remind yourself of who you are to be in your work every day,
mm-hmm.
right? And I
True.
think as you scale and as you start to add in complexity, it does make it a lot harder.
No argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that's by design. I believe life is designed that way. And
Say more about that.
Well, I believe life is designed to be hard.
Uh-huh.
And a great life is a life where you learn to do hard things well, which you learn to do them well by doing them not so well for a while. But
right.
Continuing to go with peace, this is the gig, and I'm going to keep working at it. And I put performance pressure on myself beyond, I got to be better, and I got to keep pushing myself to trust this process, whatever that is, and the progress will eventually come. But if you tell yourself, I got to hit that backhand down the line, like right now, I got to have progress right now, you'll frickin' tighten the grip on the racket and yank it, right? And so for you to really make that backhand great, you have to be at peace, hold the I don't know tennis, but it's like, you have to hold it loosely and believe, see the shot going where you are, and then just execute it, which you can't do when you're tight, which means when you're tight, you're not at peace. When you're at peace, you can perform to your peak and frickin' smack the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And figuratively or literally.
Yeah.
And so it is not this peace like I'm content and I'm like mailing it in. I'm like peace so you can perform at your peak. That's different.
Yeah.
That's what I'm after.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I was telling you about this book, The Inner Game of Tennis.
Yeah.
They just talk a lot about that. It's not about tennis, but they use tennis as the example.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're talking about, the negative self-talk, right? Their whole thing is your body already knows what to do, right? And even beginners, so you can watch somebody do it. You can replicate what they're doing. The problem is when you start trying to tell yourself what to do, right? And then when you start telling yourself all the things that you need to do, they argue, all you need to do is move your feet and look at the ball.
Right.
Don't think about the swing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Right. No, the enemy of performance in sport is thought.
Yeah.
This is why, again, we do all this before we go in. I'm not thinking right now about anything except being here, responding to whatever you give me, and then allowing the Spirit to move me to the words that come. I'm not thinking about where I'm going next or where I was. Overthinking is the enemy in anything. Which is, again, why one of my worldviews is, Chet, remember, you can do more than you think. So let's just go do more.
Yeah,
that's not a pressure thought. That's just a reality thought.
Yeah.
That gives me juice, not I got to do more. No, it's just Chet, you can do more than you think. That is exactly what Ty said to you about tennis.
We're doing the Grow program at Greenhouse, and you're one of our experts. We use that term loosely. Yep.
I knew that was coming.
And we are coming up on the November month, which is journaling, which is your expertise. So what I was going to ask you, and you could talk maybe a little bit about journaling and the other things that you recommend for people, is it's, I think, a lot easier for you to sit here and say, get out of your head and, the things that you know to be true, because you've done this work and you've done this work for so many years. But, for people that are just...
I am doing this work.
And you're continuing to do the work, yes, and that's a good distinction. But if you're just getting started, it's a lot harder, right? Because you got so much noise in your head, and right? And so I've found, journaling is a big part of my morning routine.
Of course.
And I know it is a part of yours, and you're somebody who really taught me how to write. So talk a little bit about, the importance of getting the stuff out of your head, right? So that it's not running in your mind all day long. You can get it down on paper and move that a little bit too.
Heck yeah. You're good at this.
I'd like to say this is, why they pay me, but they don't. Whoever they is, I'm still looking to figure out how to get paid for this.
Yeah. But it's rewarding, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's got a much, much better payoff.
Mm-hmm. So, writing, why is that so important? If you just ruminate about the stuff we're talking about, the little voice speaking to yourself, if you just chew it up here, it will make you more anxious. It'll make you more panic-stricken. It'll make you more depressed. Because if the brain just chews over the thoughts and we don't get them on paper, it just turns it into more gray, not gray matter, but more gray, more ambiguous. And we don't get clarity about what do I want to do next. So the reason writing is so powerful is because it takes all these ruminating thoughts and puts them in black and white in front of your eyes, out of your head onto paper, and you now can look at them all of a sudden more objectively and go, my gosh, my journaling over the last month, I need to look back at it. There's a trend here. And you can start to see patterns of your thinking that lead to patterns of your behaving. And if you like them, you have now, keep doing it. This is good. Look what you're writing, look what you're doing. Keep it up. Or you can go, hey, I'm not so sure I like where I'm going right now. Let's look at my writing and my doing and where they are. And maybe I've stopped writing. I get this all the time. I'm really at my best, Chet, when I'm writing, but I haven't been writing. Well, what are you doing? Well, I haven't had time. Well, you have a lot more time when you get stuff out of your head. You can look at it and you can move quicker. So make it a routine, turn it into a ritual. Writing for you and I is a ritual now. It's sacred. Like, we don't start the day without it. But you got to start by just doing it and making it a routine and trusting that it will help. Because the first few times you journal and you write, it is not going to bring you crystal clarity. It's just going to bring you aware of maybe some stuff in your head that's not so good. Keep writing, keep throwing it up, keep getting it out, and clarity will eventually come. And when we study the science behind it, we know now that two most important tools you can use to actually influence yourself is journaling and then talking with, like you and I are doing, talking it out. Those increase your ability to live it out. The more you write it out, get it out, and the more you talk it out, the more you're likely to live it out and live the life that you want to influence yourself to live, not the one the world wants you to do. They don't really care about you being great, you know. And so I tell everybody, you got to be a journaler. You don't have to publish. You don't have to be a writer in terms of writing a book, but you just got to write.
Yeah.
To author a great life.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Maybe there's a book in there. I know you. Do you have one in there? I had one in there. I have no intention to write another one, but I will not stop writing. You know, I still write every day. And so I'm just a huge believer in the power of the pen. And I've seen it in my life and in the lives of so many around me. And so if November is the month to focus on journaling, I would just encourage your listeners to write it out and start the routine. And don't expect it to make progress overnight. Just trust the process. And it'll work. I've never met the one that I've worked with who has made writing a ritual, who has told me that was a really bad idea. I've never met that one.
Yeah.
Everybody freaking loves it. Once they habituate it, they see the power of it. I have not got a single one who tells me, man, I wish you'd have never got turned me on to that writing. I'm wasting so much time writing. Never heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you hear a lot of excuses, and not everybody's going to move to greenhouse and can afford to live there and have access to all the different modalities, but it costs absolutely nothing to write. Right? There's no excuse.
Right.
And I do think that these things that you end up doing and that they become rituals, which you end up craving and longing for because you know how much they help you.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, oftentimes are free and at our fingertips. And it's just a matter of literally putting the pen to paper and doing it. People don't do it because, they're scared, they're blocked, they're scared to get better.
Right.
They've gotten used to whatever state they're in.
Mm-hmm.
That negative talk can be, in a weird way, comforting for people.
100%. In the most weird of ways.
Yeah.
And very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just encourage your listener, if they've made it all the way to the end, I think your writing prompt is such a good one to get out of the head. And I would encourage them to start journaling, just throwing up thoughts, and then start the core work by just simply stating, I believe, and then fill in the blank. And just write as many of those I believes as your little heart can strum up. I believe, and I believe in the power of speaking truth to myself. If that's one of yours, write it out. And just write out as many I believes as you can. and then go back and look at them and try to prioritize, like, which ones do you think really define your behavior? When you look at these I believes and you look at your life and you go, yeah, I really do live that. That is the beginning of your worldview. And there's nothing more powerful than making your worldview, your basic set of beliefs through which you make sense of the world. That's the definition of a worldview. There's nothing more powerful than authoring your own consciously. Everybody has a worldview. All of your listeners have a worldview. But to your point earlier, very few have made any of this conscious. It doesn't do you much to have a worldview, but it's not conscious, because there's just no power in that. So I would say to your listeners, man, if you were going to start with any prompt from this, your belief system matters. It guides what you listen to, what you speak, and build a conscious one. Start there, because that's the beginning point of building a strong core. That's where it starts. So I wouldn't overcomplicate it. You've got it. Just throw it out. I believe this. I believe that. Throw them up, and then prioritize them against like how you behave, and you're on your way.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. This idea of making them conscious, because that's kind of where we started. I don't even think most people hear that voice.
Yeah.
Right. So when you start to take the voice and put it on paper, and say what you believe, even if those beliefs are negative,
yeah,
right, you can start to look at them and decide. And I think the next thing that I encourage people to do, that I've been doing for a long time with love twos, but also I am.
Oh yeah, that's powerful.
Right, I am, because I think that's 100%. To me how you speak to yourself.
Yes.
Right, and so even if you don't necessarily feel like that's who you are, it is who you are. Yeah. Right. So I am
an athlete.
I am love. I am peace. I am joy. Yeah. I am abundance. I am health and wellness and abundance, whatever, right? Like these are things that you can speak to yourself.
Yes.
Right? And remind yourself when you start your day that I am truth and love. I am the best husband and father and brother I can be, friend, right? I am, right? You remind yourself of 100%. Who you are. It's not just bullshit like manifestation, the secret kind of stuff. Like it's actually messaging that you want to embody, and putting it down daily, I think, helps you step into being that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So you just moved them into the second element, the identity. That is your I am statements. These are the names you give yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. Others will give you names, some powerful, some not. But I want you to get real identities and make them positive. Because what we find with a lot of people, again, back to the fear-based, a lot of people have self-limiting beliefs and they know them. I'm not an athlete. I can't do this. And I really believe it. And a lot of them have self-limiting identities. For me, one of mine could have been, I'm not a handyman. I actually embrace that now. But there are...
Well, if you are, you certainly don't want Miss to find out that you are.
She knows I'm not. And so there are self-limiting beliefs and there are mistaken identities. I want you to get positive, edifying I believes, and I want you to write I ams that reflect your identity, not limit it.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. Then we'll get to the P, which are principles, and then the 3P, but we've given them enough to start. Yeah.
Good.
This was great. We've got more light in your eyes in 45 minutes. That's good.
Yeah. No, I do. And, I think...
I do too.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, this is kind of my learning and why I was asking you the questions I was asking you. And I think it's important for the listeners to hear that I don't think that performance and success has to look like most people think it does.
Yeah.
Right. That if you want to, say what we just did here feels to me like success, right? And yet it also feels very peaceful and full of love, so, to me, success is being reframed, and it's shifted for me, continually is and will continually shift. But I think that's a problem that a lot of men have in particular, young men in particular, and I'm sure it's true for women too in different ways.
Yeah.
And in the workplace, and I'm not sure that I know enough about, young women to know what it looks like. I have all boys, so I can only imagine, but I see it in my worldview a lot with men. And, but I know it's true with just human beings in general. Yeah. You have these societal, generational ideas of what things look like and what they're supposed to be. And they're not true.
Right.
All right, Chet.
That's
thank
a success.
You. Yeah. It's always success being with you.
Put a bow on it.
So,
thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Gravity Podcast. Please subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about the entire Gravity Project, please go to gravityproject.com. Please check out the podcast on Instagram at The Gravity Podcast. Music heard of the show is provided courtesy of Kyle Lamoro and Oliver Oak.